It is now official. CNN projects that Donald Trump has been elected president, defeating Vice President Kamala Harris and making a political comeback unlike any in modern American politics.
Here? How did we get here? What in the Alice in Wonderland nightmares is going on right now?
All I can say is how fucking dare you?
If you voted for that man, if you voted for anybody other than Kamala and you live in one of the states that it was, close, or if you didn't vote, fuck you.
I chose family, I chose women, I chose America. I love you.
How the fuck is this still happening? All I've ever known politically is hatred.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm done with you and your mother and your sister. I'm just done with all of this.
I'm sorry. All my friends who are Trump supporters. I don't understand how scared of this man I
am. I can't believe Trump's actually gonna win this fucking thing. Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm so pissed off. Fuck! 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 God damn it!
It's your choice. Yes. And it's the choice of a new generation.
I'm done with you. I'm done with you and your mother and your sister. I'm just done with all of this.
We already kind of talked a little bit about the effect that Trump's reelection has had, but let's more specifically target in on Trump's impact on Hollywood, aka Hollywood. Guys, there's so many delicious, sweet liberal tears flowing since Tuesday. And the Hollywood Reporter actually has a series of articles that we're kind of going to go through for this segment. And again, if those of you who've shown up for Gary Nerdrotic, we apologize. He had to cancel at the last minute. He's going to be on again sometime in the future. But for now, we have Culture Casino, who's even better than Gary. Better beard, anyway. And we're going to be talking about our top story right now, which is basically Hollywood reacts to the second Trump presidency. And I kind of want to have a discussion with the panel about the impact of, Trump not only winning, but getting a mandate through the popular vote and this huge shift. I mean, like if you look at the map of California, even though California went blue again, a big portion of it is way redder than it was last election season. And there's actually been a shift in the sense that a lot of people in the entertainment industry, they used to not be able to publicly wear MAGA hats or whatever. And now, ever since the Trump assassination attempt, I think there's been a shift in that where people are being a lot more tolerant about seeing people in their support for Trump. But one of the interesting things about this election was that a big reason why Donald Trump won was because of his embrace with new media. And we kind of talked about that last week. But in addition to that, it also kind of shows how ineffective a lot of Kamala's celebrity endorsements were. And so the question then becomes, are celebrities even relevant anymore? Is Hollywood even relevant anymore? Because with the mainstream media and all this stuff going against him, he pulled out not just a win, but a massive win, right? So this article right here, Hollywood reacts to the second Trump presidency win, a deep sign of nihilism. This article basically goes through every single major celebrity that you've heard of and their reaction to Donald Trump winning. And it's 90% negative and a lot of liberal tears, a lot of people just being complete, total jerks in their sword loserness. But there's also these articles here about how Trump won the first quote unquote influencer election. And of course, the Hollywood Reporter is always kind of like bending the story towards anti-Trump stuff, like it's convicted felon, Nazi, like all that stuff. But Trump one thing that they did point out is that Trump went against the grain. Instead of like doing like 60 Minutes and CBS News and stuff like that, which Kamala was doing, he went to long form podcasts. He went to live streamers, YouTubers, podcasters, influencers, and even like the A-list celebrities, which were really big in helping Kamala and Biden do fundraisers. They actually didn't move the needle a whole lot in terms of their endorsements. And so like the question then becomes, it's like, okay, what good are celebrities in election seasons if nobody listens to them? In fact, this article even points out that celebrities endorsing a political candidate can actually hurt their brand.
Especially if they've been to a Diddy party.
Yeah. Where they like lose followers, where they lose fans, where they basically show bad behavior, and basically their celebrity status actually downgrades because of it. And then finally, we have the kind of like corporate side of Hollywood, where you have the studio heads and stuff like that. And we've seen stuff from Tim Cook, we've seen stuff from Jeff Bezos. We're also seeing stuff from David Zaslav, and as we mentioned in the last segment, Bob Iger to a certain extent, in the sense that they're actually really happy that Trump
Told
won,
y'all Zaslav was a righty.
Because chances are like they're going to see a repeal in regulation. They're going to be able to do better deals. Like they've all been going through austerity measures essentially to try to save money. But now they're looking at the Trump presidency as a brighter future for them to actually start making some money for a change. And so like there's a lot of stuff going on here, guys. But I want to start off with Tom here, because it seems like he has a lot to say. Tom, when it comes to the studio end of things with like David Zaslav and stuff like that, how do you think the studios are going to start changing their decision-making process in regards to financing, taxes, regulations, dealing with actors, dealing with unions? And do you think that they're actually going to shift their strategy away from woke propaganda to stuff that people actually want to see, especially with like this huge majority mandate that Trump got in terms of the election?
I think they're going to resist. But people like Zaslav will do fine. Other leaders who aren't as hung up on the crap will do fine. Probably Tom Rothman. Depending on how Paramount rolls out, that one might do okay. The rest of the companies, like Disney especially, I don't see them changing their ways. And I've seen plenty of articles that are basically calling, for the people of Hollywood to resist Trump for another 4 years. And it's like, I'm just sitting here going, good. That's just job security for people like us. And if you really want to trash Hollywood that much worse than it already is, we'll just rebuild from the ashes at this point. Because, look, you're right. The celebrity has zero value anymore. If anything, like you pointed out, it hurt Kamala in this race. Because that's the last thing, especially when people are starving, they want to hear is a, rich motherfucker come out there and go, hey, vote for this person. It's like, you don't care about us. You're so disconnected. And that's why Trump won this election beyond the other stuff, right? Is because he actually got out there and connected with people. The McDonald's thing, even though he just thought it was kind of a lark, it ended up becoming one of the main things that helped him win the campaign, because people connected to him on a regular level, unlike most politicians when they do this kind of stuff. The garbage thing, right? This time he ran with every punch they threw at him, and rolled with it and come back twofold. And then to top it off, I mean, the way the reaction was to the whole Peanut and Fred thing, I think really kind of put a capper on it, because let's be real, it's not so much about, the killing of two little animals. It's more about the overreach of government. And who has had this happen to them more than anybody in the last 4 years? So, I mean, at this point, even the people are just like, come on, let the guy alone. It's like, you can't tell us that you politicians haven't done stuff that's 10 times worse than anything you're going after him with. You've had a probe up his ass for over 8 years. You'd think by now, if they were able to produce something to get this guy on, they would have done it by now. So I think the American public woke up. They don't care what celebrities think. And that's the other thing, is Hollywood and celebrities have killed their own value, right? When you have people coming out there and saying, yeah, there are no movie stars anymore, the superheroes are the movie star, that's a problem. Who gives a shit? Most of these people don't even know who most of these people are. And if they do, it's because these actors are 20 or 30 years in the game. Because most people my age, if you showed them a picture of Timothée Chalamet or Zendaya, unless they've seen the new Spider-Man movie or something like that, they wouldn't know who these kids are. They don't care. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. And nobody ever really listened to politicians in the past. Why would they start now? The only time I can ever think where a politician was helped by celebrity was Bill Clinton. And that's where you could sit there and say Arsenio Hall helped him win the election, because at that point is where he got the attention of Black America. And that's about it. I can't think of any other time.
Well, I want to throw this to Mr. Butt.
Why are you calling me
now?
That's
that was from Goran Falk. He says,
well,
your
that
name's
needs
Mr.
to stop. I don't like it.
Mr. Butt, the future of mainstream media. We now have Twitter, which is basically, I don't know about you guys, but like I was getting all my news election night from Twitter, and it was more accurate than anything on they were literally calling states hours before the mainstream media was, and they were accurate.
Yeah.
We got YouTube and podcasters. Like I was watching YouTube election streams. I was on the D-Day Cobra stream. I was like watching, Megyn Kelly. I was watching all these different streams, getting my new. I spent most of the night on Razorfist stream. Talk about someone who like is just very even-handed with that stuff.
Yeah,
like,
we were watching everything except for the mainstream media stuff.
Yeah. We had Tim Pool on at the studio. It was crazy. But also, so like if you look at this, there's this huge shift away from like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all this stuff, because people just don't trust them anymore. And they're going to sources of news that they actually trust. So Dutch, what do you think is the future of the mainstream media, especially going into new political seasons, like in 4 years from now?
I think the future of just mainstream media is what we're doing right here. This is people. How do I say this? I think you guys all know what I want to say, but I got to figure out how to word it. But the podcasting world, the YouTube world, the independent creator world, the influencer world, that's the future. People don't watch network television anymore. There's much better entertainment out there, and there's way more options for people to get their stuff than the network television channels. I go downstairs, I turn on the TV. I go to YouTube. I don't go to Fox anymore. Or I don't go to NBC or CBS. There's nothing there anymore except repeats of shows that were on 30 years ago now at this point. Some of these, it's wild. It's crazy. We are the future. Nerdrotic is the future. Geeks and Gamers is the future. Odin,
look at me.
Culture,
look
Brian,
at me.
The Brain Show is the future.
We are the media now.
Yeah. I mean, when Trump won the election, when he started going on shows like Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan was the sealer, but Trump was on all these other things before he went on Joe Rogan. Rogan was the bookend, the great big explosion at the end, But my understanding is that it was Barron.
Look at me.
Barron said, "Hey, Dad, you need to go get on these shows. These are where
not Batman did it.
These are where the people who are you need to win over are watching and listening and getting their entertainment from." I really do think if that's a true story, then Donald needs to put Barron in a cabinet position somewhere when he's on summer break from college, because he's a smart ass kid.
Minister of memes.
Yeah, for real. Because he's young, he's tuned in, and he knows what's going on out there. And it was wild to see. When Kamala tells Joe Rogan, I'll come on your show, but you have to come to me, and I'm only going to do an hour, and I want editing privileges. It's like
so disrespectful.
It's unbelievable. I mean, that was where this election was won. Was with him going to the alternative media locations to sit down and have long form discussions without an editor in the room, just being real with the host. And that's what people want. So
Well, Dutch,
There
to
you go.
that point, how Kamala dealt with Joe Rogan, that's how they usually deal with like CBS
Yeah.
News or like
Yeah.
ABC, like the mainstream media. They were like, okay, you come to us, like with Call Her Daddy. They spent $100,000 to recreate the Call Me Daddy set,
Yeah.
so that so that Kamala didn't have to fly out to LA to actually
Yeah.
be on the show. Like they flew them out there to their set so
You know,
she could
That's
do that.
insane. That's insane. So inefficient. Oh my god.
What was
Take a
hilarious,
flight, dude?
what was hilarious to me was when you got somebody like Brett Baer on Fox, and he did an interview with her, and they followed all her rules. It was a complete and utter cluster. It was just, you want to put a pin in where she may have lost the election herself. That was it, right? I mean,
that
what a nightmare.
Well,
and it was because they had all these stupid things that they wanted to do.
I mean, that's a primary example of how like the Kamala campaign, which was very entrenched in the traditional media way of doing things, compared to the Trump campaign, which basically like disrupted everything and went in a different direction. So I want to throw this to Odin. Odin, basically, Biden and Harris tried to court influencers, right? Like they had like this influencer summit. They brought in all these TikTokers, all these Instagrammers, all these people to the White House. And they were notorious for actually paying these influencers to support them. I think Harry Sisson, like he got paid like that hundreds of thousands of dollars to, be in the Biden Harris camp. The Krasenstein brothers, like all these guys, right?
Cardi
and so
B got
like
paid too.
Yeah, well, all the celebrities definitely got paid, but so like you have all these examples of these influencers who are on short form platforms, right? Like platforms like TikTok, platforms like Instagram, and they're getting paid tons of money, which number one hurts their credibility to begin with, right? But then like you see Trump, and Trump went in the exact opposite direction. He went long form, right? He's going on 3-hour podcasts. He's going on live streams. He's basically sitting there with like the Undertaker and Dave Ramsey and like all these guys, and having substantive long form conversations. Lex Friedman, right? Theo Vaughn, like, and these guys, they're asking him all these different questions, right? You have Flagrant with Andrew Schultz, and Andrew Schultz's counterpart is Charlemagne the God, who was like very much in the Kamala camp, right? And so you have these situations where basically Trump, instead of sitting down with a quote unquote credible news organization who basically can edit the fuck out of everything he says and create the narrative that they want to create. Instead, he's going around that and he's doing these things that are unedited. I mean, the JD Vance one, Joe Rogan had audio issues, like technical issues in the middle of the interview that they left in there, right? Like they didn't edit that part out.
Listen, really quick, Matt, I'm sorry, but when JD Vance goes on Joe Rogan and goes, hey man, I'm going to apologize ahead of time because, in the real world, I swear like a sailor. And then he proceeds to drop an F-bomb like 30 seconds later. First time in my life I have ever seen a politician, especially one running for president, drop an F-bomb during an interview. And to me, I'm never going to not vote for JD Vance now.
Yeah. JD Vance is one of us.
He's just one of us. He's a dude, It's just like, it was incredible. It was an incredible moment, and I can say, well, it's because he talks like me, because he's just a dude. But yeah, anyway, Matt, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Getting back to Odin. So like, there's that authenticity factor where when you get to watch Trump completely unedited, long form, outside of the mainstream media narrative, you see him for who he truly is, and you get an understanding of what the policies are that he's advocating for. So I want to ask you, Odin, what do you think is going to be the role of podcasters, YouTubers, and live streamers in future elections? And do you think we'll ever see a change in the debate format where it's just basically the two candidates sitting down in a long form interview, no moderators, and they just have a conversation?
I think this had a huge impact. I think that what the 2016 election really showed was, it was Trump who was the one who was showing the emperor has no clothes by the fact that he wasn't playing by the rules. He was being so much more abrasive than I've ever seen any other candidate be. He was dropping one-liners like a stand-up routine. I mean, like, again, things that no one else would ever do, and people obviously were drawn to that because they said, "Oh, this guy's pretty funny," and hey, he's saying a lot of things that I actually agree with, and though I may not necessarily, enjoy the way in which he's saying some of the things, or think that there's, obviously some problems, like on a personal level, they still were like, you know what? At the end of the day, though, he sounds a lot better than a lot of these other people, so might as well give him some support. And then 2020, of course, was just this cluster of COVID and everything else, and so there's so many things going on. But even then, the fact that he was able to add another 10 million votes after his first term, like receiving the most votes of any sitting president, and now running for office once again to get more than even then, is just an incredible thing to see. And so I think a big part of that absolutely was his going onto these podcasts. Now, how much of an impact is hard to say, because it's kind of those things where it's like, you can't say it's the sole reason, the primary reason why he won, because he won with so many different demographics. And though this was a key component to that younger demographic for sure, which was probably a bigger, portion, he also did really well with so many other parts as well. And so clearly he was just doing all the things right, all the choices he was making, all of the policies that he was speaking to. I think, going almost straight away with the no tax on tips was huge for him, especially in places like Nevada. And like, there's so many things that I think he was doing in that capacity. Because if you look to his debate performances, neither of his debate performances were fantastic. Like the first one, Biden beat himself, and then the second one, Kamala was being so obnoxious in her split screen, like, I got to put my hand up here.
Well,
crazy.
And she also got him to go off track by poking at him with the stupid size.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
so
absolutely.
That's where she got him.
To me, and I think I've mentioned this before on another stream, to me, that was almost, it reminded me so much of, not that I was alive at this time, but it's always been spoken of the Kennedy-Nixon debate. If you listened to the debate, you thought that Nixon won. If you watched the debate, you thought that Kennedy won because of the image. Same thing. If you listened to the debate, maybe weren't watching it, you would have think that Kamala was having him on the ropes, basically. But if you watched it, you thought, okay, yeah, I can see what she's doing, but oh my gosh, what the hell are you doing? Right? Because you could actually see her reaction in real time with the split screen, and then she just came across as being so incredibly obnoxious. And I think that that's why no one wanted to vote for her, because she clearly does not have a likable personality. So yeah, these podcasts are gonna have a huge portion to play in the future, which I'm excited for, because yeah, I think we're gonna find out a lot more about people in much long form, unedited content. And I think also the people that tend to watch podcasts are much more likely to tell what's the more authentic podcast versus non-authentic. It's funny that now you have a lot of people in the media saying, oh, we need our own left-wing Joe Rogan, which is hilarious to me, because Joe Rogan already is left-wing. Yeah. Like, it's like, wait a minute. If you look at a lot of the policies,
well, that's the cognitive dissonance in the problem.
I know, right?
Now,
it's like, oh, anyone who happens to like or support someone for a specific candidacy, even if they disagree with them politically, all of a sudden now they're alt-right conservative. Not, it's like, whoa. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Debate-wise, I really do. I hope that it gets back. Like, but it's so funny, because we say if it goes to a point where there's a debate being, moderated on a podcast form, in a lot of ways, it would almost be a return to how things used to be, because it's very reminiscent of a Lincoln Douglas debate.
Yeah.
So like Lincoln Douglas debates were like podcasts before podcasts were a podcast, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it was basically the format, but no one was recording it.
Yeah, and I want to point out that there was a push about 20 years ago for a left-wing talk radio network that was spearheaded by Alec Baldwin, Air America, and that failed spectacularly, because nobody, like, liberals don't actually like listen to news or talk or anything like that. So like it just failed miserably. But I do want to take a little bit of umbrage with your take on the Trump and Kamala debate, because, well, I remember, like, I was kind of surfing on X while I was watching that debate. And people that I really respect, like Jeremy from the Quartering and like all these other guys who are like, commentators and stuff like that, like they were just tweeting about how like Trump was getting destroyed. And I was sitting there, I was like, am I watching the same debate here? Because when it comes to modern day debates, it's all about the clippable moments. It's not about the actual like debate itself. It's about the stuff that everyone who doesn't care to watch the debate is going to hear about the next day. And to me, I was like clocking like every single clippable moment that Trump was dropping. And even if like Kamala was like punching him back, like her stuff was so bland that it was never going to get clipped. Like that moment where Trump's like, excuse me, I'm talking right now. Like that's the type of thing where I look at that, I'm like, that's getting clipped. That's getting shared around tomorrow. And so like when you see like these influencers taking these moments from these debates and spreading them out far and wide, that's the type of thing that wins the elections. Because most people, like below a certain age don't bother to sit there and watch the debates for the most part.
That goes back to what I was saying about perception, though. It's like if you were watching the full debate, listening to what was being said, versus you actually just saw the images, like you were actually watching the actual video itself. But then you have that other component too. I guess I should have mentioned that part as well, right? The other component of if you're just watching clips, because in clips Trump always wins, because Trump is notorious for being able to do memeable things no matter what the circumstances might be.
But the thing that won him that debate, it wasn't even something that he did, where it's the infamous "they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats" moment.
Yeah. Eating the dogs, eating the cats.
And that guy created that song, and he was an anti-Trumper. He did it to kind of like make fun of Trump, but it went so viral, and it put so much attention on the actual issue, which it ended up being true.
It became a trend.
That people actually were like, oh my God, Trump's right. And it brought that issue to immigration, which was Kamala's weakest point. So it kind of backfired in that sense. But I want to throw this to culture real quick. Culture. So one of the big issues with the debate format, and it's been like this for a long time, is that you have these mainstream media news organizations who are running the debate, and they very obviously have a bias for a certain candidate. Like going back to Candy Crowley when she was moderating the Obama Romney debate, and she literally sided with Obama on live television. That's the moment a lot of people point out that that's where Romney lost. And then you have these debates in this cycle where they were fact checking Trump left and right. They weren't fact checking Kamala, even though she was lying about the very fine people thing and the bloodbath thing, and very obviously easily debunkable lies. And so if you were to remove that aspect of these debates and have a 2-3 hour format where there's no commercials and it's just the people on a YouTube live stream talking to one another, the two candidates actually debating one another in the Lincoln Douglas style. I think that the next day, instead of having all these clippable moments where the candidates are limited to 60 seconds in their responses, you actually have people who will sit down and listen to that entire 3-hour, 2-hour debate format, just like they do with Joe Rogan, and actually become informed about what each candidate stands for. So how do you think long form, kind of direct to consumer formats could potentially shape the future of politics?
I think there's no other way that you should do it. I think that sitting down the two candidates and having a conversation is the only logical thing. Not only that, it would drive ratings, and supposedly profit and ratings are what television is made up for. So, they should be on board with that kind of thing. You would have to have a person there to draw a line if somebody was just filibustering the whole conversation, which is likely to happen. But I think that the American public would reward civility, because that's really kind of what people were looking for in this election, because it's been so incivil. And the media calls everybody out for not believing what they believe. And there's a certain amount of civility that it should be required in society. You should allow people to finish a thought or, be punished for that. And I think that kind of format would reward somebody who is thoughtful. I think you would never end up with somebody like Kamala who can't speak extemporaneously. I think that, go ahead.
No, is it just me or was Trump during the majority of this last campaign, he seemed way calmer.
Yeah, because he got shot, bro.
And way less offensive to people than he was in the 2016 and 2020 campaign.
I think he had an introspective moment. I think when they tried to assassinate him, I think that guy was like, "Uh-oh, I need to there's something more serious going on here." I think he changed it up a little bit.
And that's where also I think for him, especially with the podcast part of this, he does really well with that, because it's automatically a much calmer environment. And he does very well just having regular conversations, right? Whereas in the debate format, it's, again, he has those couple of moments, but for people that watch the entire debate, that's why you typically see a lot more split. But obviously, not as important.
But I would add to that real quick, and then I'll let you get your word in, Culture. The thing that really catapulted Trump in 2016 to the head of the Republican Party is that up to that point, Republicans were wet blankets. None of the Republicans fought back against the media. None of the Republicans took their Democratic colleagues to task, whereas the Democrats on the other side of things were very confrontational. In fact, if you look at the 2008 Republican nomination debates, where you have McCain and Romney, they were brutal to one another. And then the minute one of them got the nomination, they put the kids' gloves on because they didn't want to attack Obama. And that's one of the things that lost them. That's one of the things that was so frustrating about being a Republican back in those days. And then when Trump comes out and he's unafraid to punch back, right? That's the thing that really galvanized the Republican base towards Trump. And to Butter's observation, Trump, like when you see him on Joe Rogan and when you see him on these long form podcasts, that's the normal Donald Trump. Right. The stuff that you're talking about where he's aggressive, he's either edited to be that way, or he's in such a confrontational moment that's being regurgitated across all these different news organizations, like that moment where, like, he had Chuck Schumer in the Oval Office and he's having an argument with him about shutting the government down. Moments where, like, you have the Very Fine People hoax, and you have like this huge swath of reporters who just keep asking him, like, do you denounce white supremacy? Do you, like, he's been asked that 1,000 times in the same press conference, and he's just getting fed up with it. So, like, there are all these examples of Trump being aggressive that are taken out of context. Whereas the normal Trump is just like that's what you saw on these long form podcasts.
Yeah. But I was just saying, like, it does that in general for all people. Like, podcasts in general are much more likely to get like a much more calm environment, especially when it's a one-on-one conversation versus having several people. But sorry, Culture, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say context is king. And that in a podcast format, as Odin was pointing out, I mean, that's the same point I was going to make, is the fact that it basically outlines, where everything's coming from, and you can't clip it well. If you do clip it, it's obvious, and it can be shown later, which is the whole reason they didn't want to expose just how edited her interview was with CBS, right? And then of course the debate was with ABC. Man, Disney's corrupt. Holy crap. And then if you add to that the fact that if you have that kind of a conversation, as you suggest, the kind of debate, you just have to harken back to the eloquence with which speeches used to be delivered. And people would tell, the other guy to suck it, only in the most eloquent and polite of ways. I mean, we need that deftness, that ability and utility of language, to have people express themselves in a way that endears them to the public, and with policies at the same time. Which ultimately, I think this was even a failure of policy, because I cannot, for my life, tell you any one of Kamala's policies, whereas I feel like they were all fairly well delineated by Donald Trump. So somebody who wants to argue with me policy, I would say, what are the policies out there that have broad appeal that Kamala was, elucidating? None. So
the other thing that bothered me, and I think it might have bothered some people, maybe even on the Democratic side of things, is that Kamala was never primary. Nobody voted for her to be in that position. No. It was just, if she was just inserted in there by the powers that be, she would have been a complete and total puppet had she gotten in there, because she was not a beholden to anyone.
Yeah, she was installed.
Those people, she was installed.
The same people that are like, we need to protect democracy by voting for Kamala.
Butters, what's interesting about that is that it's coming out today, now that the dust is settling, that Joe Biden, he was being pushed out. I'm going to throw this to Brian in a second. He was being pushed out. He knew he was being pushed out. So he preemptively endorsed Obama, or not Obama. Well, technically Obama, Kamala. And basically because Nancy Pelosi and Obama were trying to get to an open primary where they could get someone like Gavin Newsom or something like that in there. And Biden's like, oh, if you're going to push me out, I'm sticking you with her, because one of the big reasons he selected her was because he didn't want a vice president who would outshine him, and he's such an idiot that they needed to get a super idiot to be his vice president. and so now all the behind the scenes shenanigans are coming out, where basically Biden, being upset that he was being forced to step down, basically threw Kamala into his position because he knew she was a loser. And I think that he specifically did things throughout the campaign to purposely sabotage her.
Like putting the Trump hat on?
Not only that, the whole thing had to do with money. The whole thing had to do with money, right? So, like, at the end of the day, the funny thing I find is funny is she's in so much debt right now. It's hilarious. So they did this because they used her, because that's the only way they had access to that money. And now she's in debt and overspent.
Well, they basically spent, they were $20 million in debt when they ended the campaign. And that's just typical Democrat spending. Like they have no idea about financial discipline whatsoever. And then Trump came out this morning and says like, hey, I have lots of money left over. I'll pay off your debt. Yeah.
Nice.
And
Wow.
just like one last troll, right? One last troll.
Right.
But Brian, I want to throw this to you because I want to talk a little bit about the celebrity stuff. And I noticed that you shared something here.
This is what's happening today. Biden is very happy for some reason. Every time he does an interview, every
he's
time there's
cognizant too. Did you notice
yeah,
that?
Yeah, he's like very aware. He's smiling. He's like, "Hey, folks,
like,
how's everyone going?"
Do ABC.
Everyone is so upset except for Biden. Anyone find that interesting at all?
That speech he gave was probably the most cognizant speech he's given in 3.5 years.
Right.
I was like, is this AI? Because like he sounds like he's actually together for a change. But Brian, I want to throw this to you.
They nominated and elected the right guy.
I want to throw this to you about the celebrity endorsements here. So like the campaign season started off with Taylor Swift throwing her support behind Kamala. And that was like, quote unquote, a big deal because she's like one of the biggest superstars in the world right now. Right. And then the big thing that sunk Biden was George Clooney and his op-ed, right? Because he basically threw this big fundraiser for Biden. And then he comes out after the debate and he's like, hey, I noticed when I was throwing my fundraiser that Biden wasn't all there. I'm worried that he's not going to be able to, close the deal. I think we need to replace him. And so Clooney threw his star power behind, Kamala, essentially like, installing a new candidate. And then you saw a lot of celebrities come out of the woodwork for Kamala, all of which were paid. Beyonce got something like $1 million for giving her 7-minute speech, didn't even perform. You have Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Julia Roberts, like all these people who are just coming out of the woodwork, throwing their celebrity endorsements behind Kamala. And yet it seems like with each and every person who came out and used their celebrity to try to endorse her, it just worked to the opposite effect. Like you have the entire cast of the Avengers come out with their weird down with democracy thing.
It's like I'm Kamala Harris. Let's tear down democracy.
And it was so strange because like their whole argument against Donald Trump was that he was a threat to democracy, and then you have the Avengers come out. It's like tear down democracy, and it was like the messaging here not quite lining up. You had Mark Cuban, right, where the Kamala campaign actively told him stop going out and pitching for us because you're fucking it up.
Yeah, so it's like please stop.
Yeah,
it was really weird because they were like going. Are you down with democracy? But it came out down with democracy. It was
And that's when War Machine was like, tear down democracy.
Yeah.
This is not the right message, guys.
Yeah. So Brian, you have this weird dichotomy here that the Hollywood Reporter is calling out, where it's like you have the average everyday quote unquote influencers, right? You have people like Theo Vaughn, Joe Rogan, Aiden Ross, the Paul brothers, Jake Paul and Logan Paul. You have all these guys who seem just a lot more accessible to the average, person versus these A-list Hollywood celebrities who are like, up in their liberal ivory towers, like looking down upon people who can't afford groceries and saying like, oh, you need to vote for more of this for the next 4 years. What do you think this tells Hollywood about, number one, their position in the cultural landscape right now? Number two, the future of celebrity endorsements in politics? Because it seems like they're more for fundraising than they are for actually changing people's minds.
Yeah, I mean, the argument about the fundraising thing is, I think one reason why Biden or Kamala ended up being installed was because they had raised so much money. So that was one of the, I guess the supporting principles behind not running an open primary was, oh, we have all this money that can only go to either Joe or Kamala. And so that's one reason why she was installed versus an open primary. When it comes to the celebrity, celebrities that are raising funds, I don't think that it's the most money wins elections anymore. I think that there's more than just raising as an insane amount of money and getting people that low information voters believe in to repeat or parrot your talking points. I think now it requires a little more finesse. And what Trump did with the McDonald's thing. Brilliant.
That was great.
Brilliant. First off, it had people like us who support him already cheering and sharing and making memes and just going crazy. I remember one meme: if I'm elected, ice cream machines will always work. Like, that was on TikTok. People were sharing it like he actually said it, even though he didn't. And then you have the other side who hates him, self-owning themselves, being like, guys, this was not real. This was staged. And the people that are in the middle are like, yeah, it's staged, you idiot. Why am I following you again? You're just
still a publicity stunt.
You're stupid.
Yeah, like the fact check that he didn't actually work at McDonald's.
Yes. There are a bunch of people in the middle that had not decided either way, or they're not political. They're like, yeah, of course he didn't work at McDonald's. What are you, insane? So there are people that are waking up to how ridiculous the leftist propaganda machine is because of this. You want to call it trolling, but I think it's just finesse. Look, when Joe Biden came out and said his supporters are garbage, and the next day, 12 hours later, they had a garbage truck on the tarmac ready for him to get that photo up. Brilliant.
He's wearing a garbage man outfit on stage at the rallies.
And then he comes out on the rally and he's honest with people. He's honest with people, and he goes, I didn't want to wear this garbage thing. I want to wear my jacket, but they said this makes me look slimmer. So they got me. So he comes out and he tells people exactly what happened. They wanted to do this. These great guys, they got this truck quickly. He's not trying to spin it into something more than exactly what it was. And then he personalizes himself, or whatever the word is, by saying, I didn't want to wear this, but they said I should, and they got me by telling me it looks skinny. So now you have this guy who is all for America, all for helping people, and the side that is against you, that is elite, that is on their hill, is telling you differently. And you have this guy who is just personally telling his story, like there wasn't an entire team behind doing it. It's just a brilliant strategy, and it's interesting. The strategy, ready, is be honest. Just be honest and work hard. That's his strategy. He was just being honest. Everything about Trump is honest. And some of the stuff he says that's honest, you don't like. Some of the stuff that most of us say that is honest, you might not like everything I say. But it's honest. So you can end up liking him for exactly who he is. Who knows who Kamala Harris is? Everything is edited. Everything is clipped together. Everything is structured and controlled. There's nothing honest about it. Meanwhile, Trump is on Theo Vaughn, Joe Rogan, doing 3-hour podcasts, 900 rallies where he just talks. I mean, celebrities aren't going to run shit anymore, and I'll tell you why. Because no one is taking real advice from Cardi B.
No.
Okay? Cardi B gets up there. Even if you're a fan of Cardi B, you aren't a fan of her because she's smart, because she's informed. You're not a fan of her because of any other reason other than you like her music or you think she's attractive. Nothing to do with how you want to make your decisions. I'm sorry, but none of the celebrities that endorsed Trump are people that I look to, even if I'm a fan, as I want to make informed decisions based on their opinions. No, I might like them because of their music or whatever, but not because I want to make informed decisions based on their opinions. Meanwhile, you have someone like Joe Rogan, Dana White, Theo Vaughn, people that are successful despite their celebrity, that have ideas and opinions that I agree with. Elon Musk, who I think is a super genius. I'm sorry, Space Daddy all the way. I'm a super simp for that guy.
Occupy Mars, man.
You have people who I actually look up to because of their decisions, because of their intelligence, endorsing Trump. So you have one side with all these really hardworking, intelligent entrepreneurs, and the other side with a bunch of vapid, no-brain, low-information celebrities. This is not a hard decision to make.
No. I feel like Culture's been chomping at the bit to say something.
Go ahead, Culture. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody listens to a celebrity anymore. I don't think anybody in their right mind. If you've ever listened to them speak extemporaneously, notice I'm using that word a lot, but to me, it's important to be able to speak.
I don't know what that word means.
You're speaking off the cuff, like without prepared, information and such. You don't have a script in front of you. When the teleprompter breaks and you have to talk to people, and none of them can do it. I mean, we saw it multiple times.
You sit there for 2 minutes like Cardi B.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Or Kamala and say, what did she say? Like 34, or 28 or something for like 37 times in a row. Anyway,
What you're saying is Brian would be a great politician.
Yeah. No,
I don't think I would because I have so many skeletons in my closet. You can build an army.
Well, I think that's all fine too. But in looking at it all, I mean, I'm still seeing the people who are disconnected from reality remaining disconnected from reality. They can't identify why they lost. They're still calling everybody racist. You can't call the black men and the black women and the Jewish people and whoever else racist and misogynist and everything else to explain away the loss. The loss was just a lack of believability by one of the candidates, somebody who could not, again, get across whatever policy they were talking about, because they weren't talking policy. They were running on you hate this guy, right? Because we hate this guy. It's good to hate this guy. This guy's bad. I also think by going the new media route, he was able to dispel a lot of these like narratives that Kamala tried launching, like the whole like Trump is Hitler, like literally Hitler. He's a threat to democracy. And like when you see him sit down and answer questions and just have a chat, like on Joe Rogan, where they were talking about boxing and MMA for like a good 10 minutes, right?
My brain tunes out whenever they talk about the MMA stuff. I'm just like,
yeah. But for a lot of people, especially Joe Rogan's crowd, that's the type of thing that's relatable. Right. When he sits down with the Undertaker and Kane and talks about the WWE and things like that, it's hard to look at him as Hitler when you see him acting like a normal, funny, interesting dude.
Yeah. Plus, he has an African American on his staff.
Or when
Elon
he
Musk.
talks. Or when he talks about, that's a good joke, or when he talks about loving this country. This man loves this country. He talks about it all the time.
But I mean, just look at what they tried to do with that Liz Cheney line, when he was on stage with Tucker Carlson. He was like, like Liz Cheney is a war hawk. She'd never like if you put her up on stage with like a rifle and facing an enemy army, but it didn't sell because there was so much new media that basically instantly debunked that. Because the minute he said that, you saw Kamala's camp come out, all of her surrogates, all the mainstream news sites tried to pull that thing about editing it out of context. And every single person who listened to Trump on Joe Rogan, and Joe retweeted the actual like unedited clip, everyone was like, oh wow, they're lying to us.
Yeah. Plus, what else Space Daddy bought Twitter. You can't lie.
Yeah, and
you can't lie anymore. You can't just here's the only piece of information you get to see. No, we're all going to flood that system with the actual clips. So you can see the whole information.
Real quick, guys. So in 2016, when Trump first got elected, you saw this big shift in Hollywood where basically there were all these allegories for MAGA voters and Trump supporters and all this stuff. Famously, Star Trek Discovery, where it's like the Klingons are representative of MAGA supporters, and you saw in the Orville, right? You had this one Trump surrogate in there for the evil alien race, and all these things where Hollywood tried to subvertly put in anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, anti-Republican messages into their stuff. And now, do you think that because there was such a huge swing, not just I think a lot of people kind of sleep on the fact that a lot of the states that still went blue saw a huge shift towards the red, right? They didn't win, they didn't go blue by a huge margin like they used to, right? So the question is are the people in Hollywood going to pick up on that and pull away from the woke bullshit propaganda crap that they've been pumping out for the last 8 years? Do you, just to the panel in general, do you guys think that's going to happen?
Maybe the celebrities aren't, but I think that the people in charge of the money that are actually paying these people, they're going to. I mean, look, hey, the majority of the country doesn't feel your way. No wonder why you're losing money. Hey, why are we losing money? Because we're making content for people that don't exist, essentially. So if you want to make money, you want to sell a product that most people want to buy. Not in a tiny little percent of people. And the people that voted for Kamala, there's plenty of people that voted for Kamala that also don't like that content. So you are making content, and we've talked about this before. You're making content for a tiny percentage of America. Hello?
And I would say Kamala made the same mistake Kathleen Kennedy did, which is she tried to go straight girl brand, completely ignored the men, right? And when the men didn't show up, they were like, why aren't men voting for us? Why aren't young men voting for us?
Right.
It's like, hey, get Tim Waltz out there because he's the bastion of masculinity that's gonna like attract young men.
Yeah, where did they find this guy?
Jesus. Talk about a mistake.
He didn't even win his own county.
They couldn't. She could not get Shapiro as VP though because she was trying to pander to the Gaza Strip vote, dude.